Alright, so I'm going to be talking about where my experience with Santa Muerte began, and I'm also going to be telling you some stories and showing you some pictures of Santa Muerte manifesting as well. But let's start from the very beginning. So Santa Muerte was not an entity I was ever planning on working with, but she was continually making her presence known to me before I was even psychic enough to actually perceive it. So during this time, I had a friend that was much more psychic than I was, and she told me that Santa Muerte was basically around me. And then one day she said Santa Muerte was standing in that doorway right there. I kind of took that with a grain of salt. I thought to myself, well, maybe this is true, maybe it's not true. But as time progressed, I noticed that my dog would stare into this space in the kitchen, and she would growl and she would bark as if somebody was standing there, but I wasn't able to see anything that was taking place. Over time, as things kept happening, I knew that it was Santa Muerte, so I started to build a conscious connection with this entity. And over time, in building this connection and becoming much more psychic, I realized that I had a past life in the Aztec culture, and that's why Santa Muerte was showing up to remind me of that incarnation and to guide me through the process of self development that I was going through in those moments and that I was going to be going through down the line that involved a lot of catalysts because I was working through the tree of death, which can be a very difficult experience if any of you know about Klopothic initiation. Santa Muerte has offered me a lot of support and has never failed to let me know that she's here supporting my process. There's times where I've asked her, like, hey, are you here? Or hey, can you hear me? And sometimes within 10 to 20 minutes, something very obvious will take place in my life to where I would know that it's absolutely Santa Muerte. She showed up in my dreams on numerous occasions. One time, she showed up in my dream as a talking statue. So I believe I was on this boat or something like that, and there was all of these Mexican people around me, and we were actually talking about Santa Muerte, and then she shows up as a talking statue telling me that she wanted my devotion, and I knew actually what this meant was she wanted me to make a contract with her. So after a little bit of time of me just kind of sitting on that, and then eventually I kind of asked her, once I was able to confirm that that's what she wanted and it felt right for me, I made that contract with Santa Muerte. Another time, I was going through some really heavy catalyst with another person. I'm not going to mention who this person is, but I was going through some very heavy catalyst with this person, and this was a person who was going out of their way to try to harm me. They had a lot of trauma in their system, a lot of stuff that they hadn't processed, and they were projecting it onto me. And it was, this person was doing everything that they could to try to make my life very, very difficult. And, it was very distressing for me to have to go through this. At some point during this, process that I was going through with this person, I asked Santa Muerte for help. So very shortly after that, that person that I'm talking about shows up with this as a gift, kind of like apologizing to me. Clearly, that's, basically Santa Muerte. And the morning before this person showed up with this as a gift, I was watching a video on Santa Muerte and car crashes, but it was in a different context than, what I'm going to explain to you now. So this person comes by, she gives me this as a gift, and then what happens is an older Spanish woman rear ends her while she's parked. Think about the symbolism. We have an older Spanish woman representing Santa Muerte, and her being parked, you know, it was just bizarre, right, to the average person. But of course, I knew exactly what was taking place. That was Santa Muerte letting me know, like, hey, I'm supporting you. So she certainly shows up in some very profound ways, and she certainly has a very, we could say, earthly way of creating manifestation. Now what I'm going to be talking about and actually showing you, or showing you a lot of it, some things I don't have on camera, but I'm going to be talking about different ways that she's appeared to me. So I've woken up and I've seen her kind of over me. I've woken up and I've seen her in that doorway. I do believe I've also seen her in different locations as well as like a cloaked figure. And during rituals, she has also appeared as well, to where I was able to actually get photos of her showing up. So there's one ritual that I was doing that she showed up in the mirror there, and you can see her manifesting in the smoke, and it's almost like there's a portal opening up behind me. And you can see there's also an owl above my head, and an owl is a symbol of Santa Morte, and you can see her kind of gazing through this like black open portal. One time I decided to perform like a very basic ritual outside. I got some coals, I lit some incense, I lit a couple of candles, and I put her statue on the table. And you can actually see her as a black shadowy figure with a crown and like a skeletal backbone manifesting and looking back at me. And then another photo that I actually took that night, inside of the smoke itself, you can see the Aztec god of the dead manifesting. So this is going to be Mictlan Tecutli. In the original manifestation of Santa Muerte is actually Mictacasihuatl, which is why, Mictlan Tecutli would show up with Santa Muerte. And at the time, I didn't actually know any of this, and I didn't know that that being was Mictlan Tecutli, but of course, I do now. Also, in incense smoke, she showed up on a horse, like with a scythe, and she's on the horse, and you can see her with like a hood and stuff like that. And this is a very significant symbol of death, and it was representing the inner process that I was going through. We can even say this inner apocalypse, this purging that was taking place within my system, and not only me, but also this was reflecting what the mass collective was going through at the time. So I knew this was a very significant communication. Santa Morte never fails to let you know that she's here. That is for sure. I am running out of time on this video, and I'm going to have to insert the pictures as well, which I don't even know how to do yet, but I don't think it can be that hard. But anyway, if you're going through a process of deeper soul development, self-development, Santa Morte is an entity that will offer you a lot of support. And this is a being as personification of death. She helps us to let go of things that we're over identified with and that we're attached to, so we can connect with the source energy within ourselves and remember that we always were that source energy, and everything that we're attaching to was never who we actually were. Death is something that is going to strip away the illusions, and if you're willing to go through that process, Santa Morte is a very supportive spirit to connect with.